We'll call this meeting to order. This is the June 9th meeting of the Central Vermont Career School Board District. We are here to have an open forum on our new building as well as conduct our regular meeting. We'll begin with the facilities forum. So Jody, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Joe Gibson is our superintendent.
I don't know what that is. Joanne, can you see the presentation? Or everyone online, can you see the presentation? No.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Because we're going to not be in this screen. Enter picture in picture automatically, so you can use it at the top of the chat. Sure. All right. So welcome to our Barry version of the facilities forum. This is our third forum, but really the second one where we can say somebody from outside of our district has attended. We met in Harwood on May 27th, and we were at Twinfield last week. And so we have Barry today, and then we will be at Montpelier for the Montpelier U32 one on Wednesday. So we're excited to keep sharing this work and hope there's some folks out on Orca that are watching.
Jody, is this the right presentation?
The date is wrong, so maybe not. Just a minute and I'll stop sharing this one and find the right one.
Go to this 2025.
Interestingly, it popped up as the first one in my slides. No, because we definitely had this one.
It's the 20. Yes.
Good call. Thank you, David. Before I went too far. We'll try again. This is why no one's here yet, except for our board to help me get this right. Okay, so for this forum, we're basically going to go over the why, some of the background information, what was some of the planning that went on early, looking at programming, site selection, which was a whole lot of fun, and concept design, which is the phase that we're in now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about cost impacts, though we don't have the full cost estimates in yet, and our next steps. So I think everyone who's followed this project is pretty aware that our goal is the ability to serve all eligible students in our region and not have my son call, and to provide programming that fulfills the needs of students, employers, and the community in a facility that allows us to do that. So by 2029, CVCC will have a state-of-the-art facility that serves all eligible students in our region, staffed and resourced appropriately, realizing an increased enrollment versus applicant percentage, as well as altered and added programming from previous years. Our vision is related to that in that state-of-the-art facility serves all eligible students in our region, staffed and resourced appropriately, thus allowing for expanded capacity, increased academic achievement through that full day programming and a full school day schedule, pathways to advanced career credentials, which we already have a lot of those, but expanding that opportunity, and strengthening partnerships with middle schools across the region to improve student access and eliminate barriers to participation. This has been a key topic in the legislature this year, and so I think it's important that this is part of our goal as well. It's one of the pieces that we are doing very little in and that we'd like to expand. So this is why it's part of this. Over the last 5 years, we have seen an increase in applications every year. And due to the current capacity, we turn away a significant number of students every year. This year, we were lucky, I think, to partner with Randolph and be able to send some of our students down there so that they do have access to programming next year. But still, there's a significant number of students who will not have access. And this doesn't even include the students that have applied for next year. So we're already over 400 students for FY26 applications with 209 accepted and third round in progress. So expecting more. So you can see that steady increase. I think the the slide I was worried about was wrong last time. But I'll check it. CVCC is considered a full day center in CTE language. It's a full day because we have 4-hour daily programs, 1,200 minutes a week. If it were half day, we would have 2-hour programming, and most centers that have half day are 2 years of the same program. So they'll have 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. And one session is for their juniors and the next session is for their seniors, their second years. What those centers have seen is that they lose students in that second year, some to early graduation, some to early college. And they can't fill them because they have that full year of experience before that. So I do think our model of the full day, 4 hours a day, is a good model. I think we just need to build on that to expand the opportunities for students and access. So that includes extending our school day, hiring additional instructors, and right now it means sharing spaces in this center that we have. Without a new facility to grow, it means we need to be really creative with what our school day schedule looks like, that we need to take additional space, potentially from Spalding if it were available, maybe from other sending schools, or we need to rent or purchase outside spaces. Both of those would require extra costs and potentially additional supervision. Prior to my coming to Central Vermont Career Center, I was hired as the director in 2021 for the 2021-2022 school year. And after that, we became a new district in 2022. And so prior to my arrival here, the previous director had worked with Truex Collins and LaValle Brensinger separately in some work in re-envisioning CVCC. It was the result of being told by the Berry board at that time in 2018 that we needed to leave. I think the intention was to bring the Spalding Education Alternatives into the Career Center space, and the Career Center would go somewhere else and build a standalone center. That didn't happen. Actually, the Educational Alternatives built their own space in that time, and the previous director had done some work in designing some lab spaces potentially, and then working with Truex Collins to look at some outdoor spacing. Since then, we've gone through the process of becoming an independent CTE district so that we could hear from 18 towns instead of 2, and to really identify whether this is the right step for us. And the board, the Central Vermont Career Center School District Board, was able to get up and running and start thinking about this vision for the future. And so we invited Truex Collins back, and they partnered with LaValle Brensinger. So bringing both companies together has been great, as you'll see when we take that tour of the model, to really get us going and excited about our future. Over time, both before my being here and since, we've gathered industry input in a variety of ways. The CLNA process allows us to do that, but we also gathered some industry input in the fall of last year and prior to my arrival here. We've done a little bit of cost estimating, and there's a little bit of a budget that the board might hear later. It's not set yet, so it's still a range, but it's a better range than what we had in previous weeks. And we've had lots of conversations around the site potential and funding, and we've begun the process. Oh, we had already done that. We were doing that process. So lots of things were happening when I got here. We had that work towards governance. We had the re-envisioning committee. We put the re-envisioning on hold and really went after the governance. And now we're back in that re-envisioning and thinking about the future. And these guiding principles had been part of the work before in that re-envisioning. And I don't remember whose role that is. Thank you, Jay.
So hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm Jay Doherty. I'm one of the architects that's part of the process. We've been working with Truex Collins and the district to better understand what is needed as part of the project. Not just meeting with the individuals who are the administration of the organization, but also meeting with the educator to understand what's being taught, how the programs are being taught, talking to parents, students to understand what the interests are and really what programs need to be fostered. Then meeting with the industry professionals. So each of the each of the programs has industry professionals who are tied to that, who are able to give us input on what they're seeing or what they need students to come out of school to understand. So as we develop the programs and further build these programs, we're able to take some of those, take a lot of that input from the organizations, from the industry professionals, and from the community to tie into the programs that you're going to see in a few minutes here. Also through that process, there were a bunch of visioning statements or principles, guiding principles that tie to us. As you can see up there on the board, there are real world education, there are small learning communities, health and wellness spaces, personalized spaces, and so on and so forth. These principles are really important as we begin to look at the design for the facility. So you'll begin to see these pieces that are really important to the district, really important to the students, really important to everyone that's around this project, get tied into the plans when we show those in a little bit. So keep those in the back of your minds.
So I'm going to walk up here if I could, because I'm going to have to point at some stuff in a minute. Can you see him over here? Okay, so the project team, Truex Collins, we are what's called the executive architect. The Valley Brenziger is our partner, and they're focusing on the CTE lab design. That's their specialty. We have local consultants, Engineering Ventures, Engineering Services of Vermont, and Wagner Hodgson for engineers, and then our cost consultants, PM and C. That's the team that we're working with right now.
So back to the programs a little bit. So understanding the programs, we've divided up into clusters, working with the district to figure out what makes the most sense to group these programs so that they can work together as clusters to build on each other, tie up these small communities that we're trying to do. So I'm going to help me a little bit here, but you can see the first group is our design, construction, and manufacturing cluster, where we have a bunch of programs that already exist. And I think the new one right now, Jody, that we added is
Advanced manufacturing.
so there's one new program that will be added based on the industry research we've taken and each institute's understanding. Also, you'll notice some of the photos in these pictures here. These are some of the CTEs that we've worked on throughout New England. This was in New Hampshire, but they're all over New England. So these are real life spaces that students are using and inspire us to our space with them. The next one is transportation. And there's really two programs that tie into this transportation. There's automotive and then diesel mechanics. Jody, I think diesel mechanics is your new add to the.
Right.
The next group is health and natural sciences. And this is a bunch of different programs, everything from infant services, which is an early childhood program, to animal science, to medical professionals and emergency services, which tie in a lot together, and then natural resources and sustainability.
So two of those would be returning. We previously had human services and natural resources here. So the goal would be to bring those back, and animal science would be a new program.
Arts, business, and hospitality. There's a whole bunch of programs here, from culinary arts to business arts, to business and information systems, to digital media, which actually has two components to it. One, which is film and video, and another one, which is graphic design.
And the business IT piece is the new portion of that.
And then a cluster that really is trying to get kids inspired about all these different programs. These exploratory and these flexible spaces allow students to each have a little bit of input on and have a little taste of all the different programs. So these really flexible spaces that allows them to get a little sample of everything so that they can help to determine what their path might be or the cluster they might want to be a part of. And also flexibility, because the world's changing, spaces are changing. We wanted to provide some flexibility in the school. So if a new program is developed, this can be an incubator to start that program. So you can see some flexible spaces.
It also allows for adult programming in the evening that we could have a variety of options available, and these spaces could support that.
Okay, so when we get to the floor plans, you'll see those clusters, and the way the building is designed It's designed around those clusters and those groups. Now we want to talk about the site search. So we finished the programming, is what we call it in architectural design, which means like figuring out the size of the space, the design of all the spaces, sort of in the abstract. But now to design the building, we needed a site. And so we did a very extensive site search. This is the search area. The purple is the sending towns, and the hatched area were the central towns, and that's the area that we searched for. And we created a selection criteria. Had to be in one of those towns, had to be 20 acres minimum, had to have municipal, originally we said municipal sewer and water nearby, and 3-phase electrical power nearby, and paved roads nearby. But I'll show you what happened. Next slide. This is the number of sites that got caught in our search. It was 193 sites. So then we said, okay, get rid of the word nearby. It has to be on a paved road. It has to be have 3-phase power, and it has to be on municipal water and sewer. And that, you can see here when we did that, and we removed the word nearby, it came down to 16 sites. And so a series of sites where we culled that down to a top A list of 6 or 7 sites and a B list of 6 or 7 sites. And the site that we finally landed on was in the B list, I believe. Or there was a site near it.
Yep.
It was in the B list. So let's go to the next. So a lot of people have asked, what about U32? What about the Berrytown Industrial Park? What about Airport Road and other sites? U32, we did do a test fit. It's a very challenging site. It's not really big enough for the full program. It displaces many playing fields. And the other part is that it's very difficult for the district to initiate any discussion of co-location. And the feeling was that CVCC is turning away hundreds of applicants every year. We can't wait 10 years to solve this problem. We need to solve it now. The Berrytown Industrial Park, we actually approached them, and they basically said those sites are not available for nonprofit organizations. They want for-profit organizations on their sites. And then the Airport Road site, which we were very excited about. It was flat. It was open. It's across from the airport. And but one of the big issues in Vermont is wetlands. And time, we probably walked 6 or 7 sites, and we learned to put our big boots on because these sites were wet. I've got some great shots of Jody and Terry wishing they had a machete tromping through. So those sites just didn't work out. What we did find was the site at 16 Baptist Road in Graniteville, 27 acres, it's on a paved road, it has municipal water and sewer, it has 3-phase power, it does have some wetlands, but they're minimal and we can work around them. This was a little exercise I did because some people have been concerned about the so-called remoteness of the site. So what I did was I strictly went on Google Maps, and I said, how far is it from the Cabot School to the 16 Baptist Road site, and how far is it to Spalding High School? And you could see it's 5 minutes longer from Cabot, it's 6 minutes longer from Harwood, it's actually shorter from Montpelier, it's only 7 minutes away from Spalding, so on and so forth. And so this is what Google said, real
Depends what time of day.
Results may differ in real life,
We were talking about, a lot of people forget that you can get off of exit 6 and go straight down and up to this property. And we don't know what time of day that David did this search to find out the travel time. So that could have a huge impact. There's just other ways to get there that potentially Google did not suggest.
Yeah. So, so this is a location plan. You can see the building right here. and this is a Rock of Ages up here, so you can see that, and these are all the quarries that it's near. So just to kind of give you a sense of, some of the other things in the area. Next slide. And now we're moving in a little bit closer, and this is its relationship to the village. You'll see that it's completely surrounded by trees. It's a heavily wooded lot. We're maintaining a 50-foot buffer around the entire building. It's also a zoning district that you can only build 35 feet high. So it's not going to be a terribly tall building at all. And, it will have an access point that comes right through here. But there's ways we can do to mitigate any impact on the neighborhood. So this is the site plan. And I apologize, it's rotated. So now north is to the right here, and that was just to get the whole site to fit on the page. And the way the site is organized, it slopes gently uphill this way. The building is 2 stories on the downhill side and 1 story on the back side. The stormwater retention pond is at the low side of the site. There's parking. In the front, this would be mostly student parking. There would be a bus drop-off and car drop-off in the front, and then a road that encircles the building. There's a delivery area here, loading dock. This is a project yard up here. This is staff parking on this side, and there's automotive is back here, so there's a project area for automotive, and then you come around the building and back out. And once again, you'll see it's completely surrounded by trees. We're even going to, on the side that faces the neighbors, we'll be adding more plantings, probably conifers, so that all year round there's a screening. So next Jay's gonna talk about the interior of the building, and then we'll go back and look at the exterior.
David got to stand up and point, so I get to stand up and point now. Can you go back just 1 second, Jody, just to reiterate what David was talking about? So the way that the site slopes, it allows us to have 2 first levels, have things that grade on 2 levels. Because if you think about all those shop spaces, all those spaces that want to bring in equipment, bring in materials, they all want to be at ground level. So the way that the site slopes, it allows us to have 2 ground levels, one at the upper level. It does have some second floor space for a lot of open space to get us outside, and then a lower level that also has ground level space. So as we look at the plan now, this is the lower first level that you come in at. So that entry is right here. And it brings us to the center of the school, which is really the heart of the school. This is a space that is going to be a very big multi-purpose space that a lot of things will happen in. This will be a space that presentations can happen in. This is going to be a space that can be the cafeteria space. This is a space that students will hang out at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. This is going to be a socialization space, but also really the heart or hub of the school. And we'll see that in 3D in a little bit. So that's really the heart that brings you in. As we're entering the space, go to the next one, Jody. As we're entering the space, there are a bunch of security pieces that tie into this. There's several doors that can be locked and unlocked depending on who's coming in and what time of day and all those pieces that tie into it. But right off that is admin. So admin has eyes and control of that series of doors and everything that happens right there. That's the yellow spot you see. The other 2 spots that are right off that can be locked down or opened up are 2 spaces that really rely on public, which are our dining space for our culinary program and our cosmetology space that really is relying on people to come in to be part of that. So they're set up right here along the entryway. So this is kind of an entry sequence that gets you through. As we move around from the heart of the school down this corridor, we have a bunch of programs, and they're all centered around a central hub. We talked earlier about these clusters being able to have a space that becomes their home or their connection point, so that programs can intertwine between each other. We have our animal space, and we have our early childhood space off that. On the back, we have emergency services. We have medical professionals, and at the corner, we have natural resources. And all those programs are around the centralized space. And I think when you see the 3D, you'll understand that centralized space that we're really talking about, that they can collaborate in. As we move from that space, we go back to the heart of the school. Right off that, we have a flexible space. And again, we talked earlier about the flexible space really inspiring students. So this is the space you can see off that space that has lots of glass, that you can see a lot of different programs happening in, and really becomes a flexible space. It also could be used for adult programs and everything right off that. The other piece that's off that is a gymnasium. And that is an alternate right now, but as Jody will probably talk about a little bit, if this goes to a full day program for students to be there all day, you will need a gymnasium. So we're pricing that out as a piece of this. Attached to some locker rooms and some other pieces attached to that. As we move upstairs, this half of the building is all like great with all shop spaces and doors and everything to get you outside. This side is that second story space, and we'll show you those in a second. The real center of the heart of the school is really a 2-story space that ties the whole building together from the lower level to the upper level. On this side, this is the 2-story space. We have a lot of flexible labs that are in here. And again, they have a heart or a community within their space. So flex and exploratory spaces all off this. A lot of the classrooms are off the corridor so that they can be used multifunctional for a bunch of different programs. And then behind those are lab spaces that are more intense for specialized programs that tie to that. The other piece that's there also is some student service space where we have some guidance and some other student services that are all tied right to the heart or the hub of the school. Also in that center space off the heart of the school is a library slash student common space where they can do research and be part of that. And then off the front side here, you'll see our digital spaces, which are our film and TV and digital arts. And then IT and business also tie to that with a community space or their own collaboration space off of that. And then as we move down the corridor here, you see a lot of spaces with exterior access to them. We have a lot of our heavy shop spaces in here, everything from welding to advanced manufacturing. And on the other side, we have plumbing and heating, we have building trades, and we have electrical. And all of those spaces have a central space that ties off to that where they can begin to collaborate between the programs. Not just inside, but there's also the courtyard that David was talking about that's outside that they can collaborate outside and build projects and things on the outside. And then at the far end, we have our automotive and our diesel programs that are happening at the end there. As David talked about before, there is a pathway or a driveway that drives you right through the school so they can bring cars directly into lifts for that program. I think that's the highlights of the inside, and David can explain the outside now.
The outside. Jody, can you maximize the view? Is that?
I can for us, but not necessarily for the people online.
Okay. It just makes it easier to see. So we're going to show you a series of images of the exterior, and then we have an animation which kind of has a takes you both around the exterior and the interior. So this is the drive as you approach. The building entry is over here. This is, it has, as you get closer, could you go to the next slide, please? So you can see that it has this stone base where the plan is to use Barry granite. What we want to do is we want to tie the building to its region and use local materials without, mimicking, a granite shed or anything like that, but being reflective of the region. And then the upper section would be more a lightweight material like metal or a resin panel. You can see here the playground for the early childhood program, and you can see the front entry right here and the drop-off area. Next slide, please. This is the entry. We've got, one of the things that when we visited we took a trip to Maine to see 3 CTE centers that LaValle Brenziger had done. And we got a lot of feedback from the staff. And one of the things was that they really wanted a modern CTE center that represented the state of the art, and but they also wanted warm, lots of natural light and plants. So that's part of the kind of design aesthetic that we're trying to achieve here, is we kind of a warm, modern look to it. So you can see lots of plants, natural light, there's some wood accents. The granite would be like a rough hue, like textured, so catch the light. And so we're excited about the direction that the design took. Next slide. This is another view of the entry. You can see the granite here and the metal above. Next slide. So now we're just going to go around the exterior so you get a feel for it. You can see we've got a lot of solar panels on the roof. The goal is to make the building as close to net zero energy as possible, which means that the building functions, not the processes inside, but the building functions, that we generate as much energy on the roof as we use during the course of a year. It's a challenge to do this with this building type, but this was part of one of the guiding principles that was set back in 2020, and so we're very intent on trying to achieve that. You can also see some roof features. These let light into the interiors. These are the 2 collaboration zones on the front, the back, and then the center. What is it? The hot tub?
The faculty's hot tub on the roof?
No, I shouldn't say it. People think I'm
It's
serious.
not.
It's an oculus or a round skylight that lets light down into the center of the space. So now we're just going around. You can see here on the right is the gym addition. And that's just as a preview. That's going to be a decision point for the board about whether to include that in the bond or not in the initial ask. Let's keep going around. So here you can see the loading dock. This is the project yard. You can see how it's really a low, long building surrounded by trees. You know, that's one of the things, I think Jay mentioned this earlier, is that, you know, if you ask every program, what do they want? They all want to be on the ground floor with an overhead door. And so we tried to give us all the programs that absolutely needed it to get them on the ground floor. But, and that's one of the reasons these buildings tend to sprawl a little bit, is because of that. And it actually worked because, as I mentioned earlier, the zoning regulations limit us to 35 feet. So we really couldn't go up. So finally, we're coming around to the front again. You can see the drive coming down. This triangle in the front is culinary and cosmetology, and you can see the parking on the right. And now we're going to go inside the building, show you some images, and Jay's going to walk you through those.
So we're still working on colors and textures and all those pieces, but this is just to show you what the space is going to look like and feel like in 3 dimensions. So as we enter, I talked about a series of doors that allow security. This is going through a couple sets right here. On this side of us is the admin. On this side, we see cosmetology, and further down, we see the dining. And then there's a set of doors that locks off this entry to that heart or that hub of the school that we're going to see in a second. This is getting into the heart of the hub of the school. That's going to be our space that is multifunctional for presentations, for cafeteria, for students to be able to hang out at the beginning of school, the end of school, and just the heart of the school that all programs can collaborate in. Off this space is the cafeteria. There's the admin that can see it. There are, you're looking up there to the library space that's part of this, including the guidance spaces and everything that kind of ties into this heart of the school. And as David talked about, one of the guiding principles was natural light. And we're using natural light to really energize these hubs or these hearts that happen in the school. So there's that Oculus light, natural skylight to let light into this space. This is moving down to one of the other areas. This was the animal and early childhood and a bunch of the other health and wellness programs that happen in here. And again, it's a little hard to see, but there's natural light that's pouring down here too to get it energize this space. This could be a collaboration space between all these programs. Trying to tie some natural materials in there with that wood. So this is the upper part of that same wall. You can see the skylight there, letting natural light into this space. These are a bunch of those flex or collaboration flex and
Zones, yeah.
flex zones.
Oh, the flexible labs.
The
Yeah.
flex labs with a zone off
Exploratory.
of it they can collaborate in.
Yeah, this is the exploratory floor.
Exploratory, that's what it was. Yeah. Here's the going back to the heart of the school, you can begin to see that set of stairs that brings you, connects both floors, so it makes it feel like you're together. Using this, so this could be a learning stair, students can sit on it, presentations as we talked about, and just becomes that really, that space of the school that really becomes the heart of the school. And you can see the natural light. And then you also can see in the side there, that's some of the business programs with some display space to display some of their, the things that they're creating. And this is zooming in on that area, giving them collaboration zones, spaces where they can display things that they're working on so they can highlight and really show off what students are making. This is around the other side, looking down the stairs this time, and you begin to see, this is that presentation wall that we were talking about that really brings some verticality to the space. That would be a screen so that presentations could happen in this space. It would be a digital display rather than a projection because of the natural light of the skylight above us or the oculus above us. And then you can also see, there's an elevator there to get students between floors, so it's accessible for all. And then there's also a window into admin, so admin has eyes on this space too. So love eyes on this space. This is the other collaboration zone down the far end with automotive at the far end of this, and a bunch of the other building trades from welding to advanced manufacturing to building trades, all having access to this space to collaborate in the center of the school. The school is really wide, so to allow us to have these spaces where natural light comes into the center of them is really going to energize these spaces. This is the video, right, Dave?
Yeah, this is the animation, and I'll just point out a few things. Unfortunately, it'll be a little bit jerky because it's through the internet here, through Google, but you'll get the general picture. So it's basically going to take us on a sequence. It's not too bad. We're going to drive up to the front entry, and then we're going to go inside. Hopefully none of these cars will hit each other or hit a bicyclist, but you can see there's the early childhood area. This feature window goes into one of those exploratory labs. Now we're coming along the front entry. You can see the stone base, and it's nice that we got a bicyclist to come out all the way out to Berrytown. So now we'll go inside. You'll get a sense of what Jay was talking about the.
So admin's on your right there.
Admin's right here, and then cosmetology will be on your left. And culinary is on your left here. And they have their own cafe that's part of, which will be a really nice function room. So now we're in the heart of the school.
You can begin to see all the programs that surround this space to really
energize the versus presentation wall. So now we'll go upstairs. To turn around and take a look back down. You can see that, what Jay was saying, the servery is around the right here, but this space will be the cafeteria. It will be the auditorium. It will be a social space. It's like a Swiss Army knife of spaces. Now we'll walk across this bridge. We're following this guy in a suit for some reason. I think we suspect he's up to something. So this is one of the collaboration zones. This is for the business group in IT. And now we'll walk down the hall to check out another collaboration zone.
He's really impressed with the building, actually.
Yeah, and that's
He's
the
like,
elevator,
wow.
that gray door right there, it's the elevator. He's probably taking the elevator. So now we're gonna go down to the two-story collaboration zone. And you can see one of the key things that we tried to do is get a lot of glass in the corridor so you can see into the labs. So you can see learning happening, and it makes it very exciting.
It inspires other students to be excited about things too.
Yeah, this guy's pretty excited here.
It also cuts down on the interruptions that tours might have on our programming. Because right now they have to come through every single space.
So that's the upper part of and you can see the skylight Jay mentioned up above, shedding light down here. This is the lower part of the collaboration zone. So now we're gonna go back outside. We'll give you kind of an aerial tour of the building.
There's the early childhood, it's the space David was talking about with the playground outside.
So there you can see the skylights, this is the big skylight into the collaboration zone. You can see all the solar panels. There's the gym that we were talking about, loading dock and project yard. And this is the doorway on the end here is that drive-through area of automotive. And this completes the tour. So the project costs, we just got our estimate back, and I think we want to save that conversation for the board. Part of the discussion.
We could say it's on the lower end of this.
Yeah, we could say it's, the good news is that it's on the lower end of this range. We'll talk more about it at the board portion of the meeting. And where we're at right now is that we got the numbers in like yesterday or Friday, and we're going through it with a fine tooth comb to make sure that it's accurate. Making sure that it's covering all the costs so that, because what we do is we have a very robust project budget worksheet. The construction cost is just one part. There's probably 75 different line items: move-in costs, legal costs, clerk of the works, owner's project manager, permits. I could go on for a long time. And so what we do is we build the project budget, and so that's the number we're talking about, is the project budget, because that's the amount you go for your bond.
So as Michelle and I have been thinking about how do we help people understand what the cost to them might be, what we've decided is that once we get that finalized number, we're going to use FY26 rates to try to just plug those numbers in and recognize how much it would cost if it were happening now. We don't have any other way to do that based on how complicated the funding is, and thinking about our 6 sending districts and also any changes that might be ahead of us, depending on what the legislature decides. So once we get that number in, we're going to do some more in-depth tax thinking. And Scott, I think Jake is part of your board he and Michelle were able to talk last week, and he's going to give us some support in that. So that's really awesome, just to have his expertise in taxes to kind of do that out. So Michelle is looking forward to playing with those numbers.
Loves spreadsheets.
Okay.
Awesome. Send it. Love it.
So right now, we're still on track, I believe, for our November 2025 bond vote. After that, when we think about the project schedule, there would be the need to continue with the design of the building and to start getting permits. Construction would begin in the spring of 2027, with our building opening to students in the fall of 2029. Those are our goals still at this point. And we're hoping that folks will join us in our facility committee meetings, to visit our website, and just to follow up with us to see what's going on and give us some feedback along the way. What questions do you have?
It's exquisite. It's just very, very exquisite. Great place to learn.
Jody, I want to mention that there's a list of questions that people have asked and potential answers and that type of thing.
Yeah, did I include those in the board package? Okay, so those are connected, I think, to our board meeting agenda. So that's a shared document that people can log into and check out, but we're gonna be talking about that. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Jody. First, I'd like to congratulate you and the board. This plan is really incredible. I mean, it would be such a source of pride for Central Vermont to have this opportunity for our kids, you know, given where a lot of our buildings are in need of repair and, you know, and all of the ways in which we're struggling. So I hope we can find a way to support this. My question is, in what ways can we bring in revenue? You mentioned that we might be able to use this space to encourage adult education. And while that was a very small part of revenue, what other opportunities do you think there is in the community for us to market and also to encourage a project like this?
Good question. I think it is about, there's not a lot of revenue that we would necessarily take in. It's more about what we give the community and the training of the workforce and increasing that workforce that we need in Central Vermont. And by doing that, we increase housing growth and all of those other things and the capacity of each sector of industry. There is some potential for partnerships across a variety of industries to make sure that we're certifying folks and recertifying folks in the adult world, in their programming and in their jobs. And there may be other opportunities to use this space in a variety of ways. And I don't think that we've really thought through all of the potential for it. We're really thinking about access for our students and the impact on our community of having more people entering the workforce, and knowing that CTE students have a better track record of staying in Vermont than some of their peers.
That's great. And just if I could follow up with one more question. You might have mentioned this, and I'm sorry I didn't hear it, but I was really excited that you were offering a program that would capitalize on the Berry Granite, and that didn't work out this year. So where would that, are you planning that in the future, and where might that fit? Because I think that would just be another way to showcase the community and where this career center is located.
Yeah, it's definitely not reflected in this plan right now. There's a lot of ways that advanced manufacturing could go. So that manufacturing space, we're not sure exactly what it's going to look like yet. I think that'll be informed by at least 2 more rounds of the comprehensive local needs assessment to determine that. And maybe that'll give us a chance to really work with partners in the granite industry to figure out if there is indeed a need and a way to get folks interested. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough students interested in that program over the last entire time that we had it. And we also lost our partnership for post-secondary credits. And so making sure that there's industry recognized credentials or credits with every program is a requirement under the federal laws.
Thanks, Jody.
Mm-hmm. Guy, were you gonna say something? Or did you already? I couldn't remember. He already said something.
He was thinking, you heard him thinking.
Ah,
The other thing you didn't mention, I think you saw this, if I remember correctly, potential partnerships with industry.
yeah, I mean, what we saw in Maine is that in a couple of centers, the industry partners actually sponsored the program. And so they were listed on the door outside of the program as sponsors. So I remember Makita was one that had sponsored a program, and I was very interested in that. It's not something that Vermont has done before, but when we were working on how do we pay for the renovation to the welding space, it was one of the asks I made of the governor of, well, this happens elsewhere. Could we do that here? And they were willing to give it a go. We didn't need it, it turned out, but potentially that could be a resource as well.
Today down here.
Yes, in the library. There's an art show at Spalding today, so that's where everybody is. They didn't come to the forum because they're looking at their students' art, which is great.
And there's some kind of concert, choral concert.
A concert is part of that, so we don't blame everybody for making sure they support their kids. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
As we all know, the legislature is still talking about education reform, and I know CTE is one of the many issues. So I'm curious how the different outcomes at the state level intersect with the plans here in Central Vermont. Like, if we go to a single CTE district for the entire state, does that change much?
I think if we're in progress, I would see the project continuing forward. The change is where do the tuition dollars come from, right? And so do they come from our 18 towns, or do they come from the entire state of Vermont at that point, which I think is the answer, that they would be spread across the state, which they sort of are anyways in the funding formula as it is. You think you have local control, but you don't really. So it's hard to say. If this project is underway, I don't see it stopping because of that. And I think that it could likely be, the word is escaping me right now, but a model basically for the state, and we would see potential shifts in that. It's sort of like when last board meeting in May, when District 6 folks came and talked to us about the EMS training that we could do, and how we could be a model for that when we put their training into CTE centers, that we're going to pilot that, and then other centers might be able to take that on in other counties. Like, I think that's what we're looking to do, is to do this to provide access to more students here, but also to show that there's a different way to actually do CTE and maybe actually start transforming education instead of just looking at funding and governance as transformational. Is that the right answer? Well, thank you for coming. Did you, Emily? Did you have any questions?
Oh, sure. I'm Emily. I'm on the Very Unified District Board of the Austin Granite Center. I think this is a wonderful thing. The facility looks amazing. Be a great for our kids and our community, of course. My concern is the affordability part. We are just coming off a really hard budget cycle where we lost a lot of funding, and our students lost a lot of things. And that's also, I think, reflective of the sending schools as well. So I'm just trying to balance, asking that additional funds from taxpayers when they also have the opportunity to cut their local public school budgets. And I just wonder, will that happen? If we ask them for this additional burden, will they then go on town meeting day and say, well, we can't afford our public school? That's a concern.
I actually anticipated that we would hear that sooner than later. We did not hear that at the Harwood Forum. There were a few people there. We heard basically this is something that we need, and our high schools can't put some of the hands-on learning that we need into our schools right now. We can't put it back because, like you said, you're having to cut things. The hope would be that we can find a way, I think, in this region where we can serve all students in the way that they need to. But I don't think we've had a lot of conversations about how that can happen and what's the best way forward. I think that there's going to be some difficult decisions in that, and I don't think you can keep all of the high schools open in central Vermont that we have. It's five of them. But that could be part of the problem or part of the motivator to maybe move high schools together and figure out what is the regional high school approach, if that's going to be it. I would hope that folks recognize that all of our students need support. I think that what our students are going to give back by, working here locally and living here is huge, and it shouldn't take away from others. And unfortunately, we can't control that, and it will probably have that impact in some places, if not all. I think that's why the board reached out last summer and said, we're moving forward with this project, but at the same time, we're concerned about how many students are we going to take out of every sending school that already is experiencing declining enrollment? And we didn't get a lot of feedback on that. I think Barry was the one board that when I visited, we did hear some feedback. And maybe that conversation steers us in a different direction at some point, but we've had resistance to engage in it. I'm curious if that's going to be part of our conversation on Wednesday night when we hit the Montpelier school and we hear from Montpelier folks. I think that will be a concern.
Can I ask a follow-up question? This seems like a very small gathering. Are other meetings, are you seeing people?
These forums have been really small. We had 3 people that were not part of our board or our presentation crew at Harwood. We had nobody at Twinfield. What we did have at the select board meeting was a full house up in Barrytown of mostly neighbors who were adjacent to the property. And they didn't even, they were not angry at us so much as they were the town for not giving up some of that land in the industrial park for this project. So what I heard was a mix of support for the project and a not in my backyard sort of thing. They did provide us with the questions that I think, Guy, you referenced earlier, that we have the answers to now. So I was hoping that they would also show up here and we could share, here's where we're at with those answers for those questions. But we're gonna have to do another method of outreach. We really struggle, and we put this on Facebook, we put it on Front Porch Forum, and we're still not seeing, but there is an art show.
It's something that we're struggling with too.
Yeah.
Getting people to show up, getting parents to come, getting polls, it's a real problem. And if you're looking at these small groups all the time, I wonder how accurate that data is, that feedback that you can rely on. I understand it's such a problem.
Yeah.
By the way, this small group is the board and the architects. That's the small group over there
So
on the screen.
It's you and Joanne. Correct.
Okay, so we're the only people who are not on your board right here.
Yep. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not speaking, representing the board, but my sense from conversations amongst the folks in Montpelier is that there's so much uncertainty at the state level right now that even trying to understand whether there's going to be one high school in central Vermont or 5 or somewhere in between, then throw on top of that this, and so I see sort of an acknowledgement that we need CTE, and it's just too much to comprehend all of the possible outcomes without the certainty from the city.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Although I did get a comment yesterday at a Plainfield Opera House performance of someone who's on the select board who hung up posters about our Twinfield meeting and said, if nobody showed up, it means there's no problem, which is what Jody said, and that everybody just supports it.
In the absence of evidence, you can make it up.
I think the financial implication is once we figure out that, we'll begin to have people start talking. And the fact that we're turning away so many students, you know, I don't know how anybody in good conscience can continue to have that happen. As Jody said, you know, we need to make sure that all kids get served. At a time when it's almost at a crisis point in terms of, you know, the trades retiring, that type of thing. I think the timing is great personally. The other thing is, you know, the pain is spread out. It's not like one town is gonna take it all on by themselves. We're talking, what, 18 towns?
Yes,
I
but
think we'll be somewhat surprised, hopefully pleasantly surprised, when we look at the, you know, the potential financial implications.
Could you talk a little bit about the staging of the bond? Like initially, it's one big bond, but that it's staged, that 1 year is less expensive and the next year.
Go more into detail at a later date. We have.
yeah, Cam talked about that. He has more understanding than I do of that process. And so he sort of gave us a little bit of a primer at
Right,
Twinfield when we were sitting there, and I did not digest it.
okay.
So it's better that I don't, or I might say something that's wrong.
Right, that's why I don't want.
Did you have any follow-up?
Oh, I'm sorry to just take up so much time. But I always want to talk
Your
about
title is 50% of the time.
education funding. You know, what we're looking at in various of the projections coming from Montpelier are a 15 to 22% increase in our taxes if we start to move to that foundation formula. That's a significant impact for our community who voted down their budget 4 times 3 years ago. So if we're already looking at an almost 22% increase in our taxes just to keep our public schools going, I'm very concerned about having that accurate modeling for what the modeling would look like. I know it's really hard to understand, but I don't think that FY26 numbers are going to be useful to people. I think they're going to change.
Yeah, I think that we would be willing to look at a different way of modeling if something is passed in the next couple of weeks. If it's not, then it doesn't make any sense to model off of something that's not determined. So we're gonna go with the safest route for modeling, and then try to figure it out as we learn, whatever changes happen. I think that tentatively the vote for the Senate and the House would be next week, early next week. So we might have more information by next Monday.
Can I ask one last really quick question? There's been pretty steady outpouring of support for CTE in the state.
Yeah.
Is there any indication that there's any support from the state to move forward on a project like this, like financial support?
I wouldn't say that. You've been on the school construction committee, and I don't think you've gotten very much.
I think what I understand, the general thesis is that we've got too many buildings, not enough kids. So we don't need to build any new buildings because of that factor, but it doesn't, it's not a very nuanced or thoughtful look at it in that, you can't put a CTE center in an existing high school, right? We need 22-foot ceilings. We need these big shop spaces. So, and there's another thought that, there should be one regional high school in central Vermont that is a comprehensive high school, but that has CTE and academics for the whole region. But nobody, we're probably the only people who have done a study of could you even fit a CTE center on that site? And the answer is not really, not very well. It would be very tight. There'd be compromises in the program. So it's an idea that's, I think, floating around in Montpelier, but I don't think that they've done the work yet to see is it really possible. I think this project has done probably more work in that regard than they have, and has determined it's not the ideal solution. I mean, you know, what we've talked about very just broadly is that it could be that there are two comprehensive high schools or two regional high schools in the region, one more oriented towards academics and one more oriented towards CTE. And that seems to serve the general goals that I've heard from administration, without explicitly following that there should just be one school. And I think, and that's a result of the work that we've done.
What do you think, Alice? Ready to move into the regular meeting?
Ready wherever you are.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Great presentation.
And thank you all for being our presenters tonight as well,
Thank you, Brad.
to move our project along. We'll move into the general portion of our board meeting tonight. We've already been called to order, but we'll still say if there are any guests who are staying, we'll welcome you to our board meeting. And if anyone has any comments for items that are not on the agenda, we could hear them now. Anyone who is visiting us have any comments about anything? Hearing none, we'll move forward. We have the review of our norms and agreements. We as a board have already settled on the fact that we will be civil and polite citizens in our meeting, and we stick to that throughout, and we will continue to do so. Are there any agenda revisions or board comments?
I would recommend that since we've got our two architects on payroll, that we move the project budget presentation up first. And then we're able to hopefully move straight into the program presentation with Dr. Jocelyn. And then because Dr. Jocelyn is staying for the executive session grievance hearing, and Dr. Carter is also online, I think we should move that up as well if possible.
Okay, so let's do the project budget presentation immediately following any other public comments or correspondence, and we'll put that in. We'll move 6.3.1.1 up right after 4.3. Right. So were there any calls, comments, correspondence that anyone received over time from the last meeting? Any board correspondence? Any administrative correspondence? Aren't we lucky? All right, so finishing that, we'll now move into the budget presentation for our facilities program.
So my part of the presentation will be fairly brief. So as I mentioned earlier, we received the cost estimate from PwC Cost Consultants, and we've been scouring it. And one of the reasons we've been looking at it so intensely is that it was lower than we anticipated. And that is it's like if it's higher than it's anticipated or lower, you're sort of take an extra look at it, especially when it's lower. So we've had several meetings. We met this morning. We will be meeting with the cost estimators. The way the process goes is we get the cost estimate back. It's pretty detailed. We send it out to all the engineers, and they go through and they say, you know, we just got some bids back on geothermal, and it's really $100 a square foot, not 75. And then we have kind of a reconciliation meeting with the cost consultants, and they say, yeah, well, we could bump that up, but, we're carrying, but then we shouldn't carry this line item, so on and so forth. So right now, we're predicting that the project cost will be between 140 and which is significantly lower than we originally. And that does not include the gym. The gym is about 5 million. But it does include a number of, it includes some things like it includes offsite stormwater mitigation. So it has quite a bit in it, but we don't have, for example, a greenhouse. So we have to add the greenhouse in, and then there's also, we talked about maybe we should have a vehicle maintenance building, for like, you're gonna have the site, you might have a truck or a tractor, you might have a structure for the, because you don't want them outside. It could be the building. So there's like pieces like that we have to kind of make sure they're accounted for. But so what we're hoping is next week, this week rather, to have all those meetings and finalize the numbers, and have a meeting with the facilities committee on Monday to review sort of final numbers that they would bring a recommendation to the board. And the decision points will be, the big decision point is the gym. That's 5 million, whether to build it into the bond or build it later. And there's different pros and cons to that strategies, but try to go for it all now. The bond bill doesn't pass, you take it out, you get the cost down, make the project more palatable. But if it's a critical piece to the project in terms of what you need to become a comprehensive high school, then sometimes you'll have to buy the other ones.
So would it be possible then, while we're working on developing a full day program, but it sounds like we need to have the gym. Would that space be a viable space for who knows what other things until the point that we are, I'm not saying we should store maintenance trucks in there or anything, but, but use the space.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like a lab. It's a big open space. It's got the same height of ceiling and stuff like that. It could be another lab space until we need it as a gym. That's a good idea.
When you talk about between 140 and 150 million, is that in anticipated monies? Is that 2027 monies or is that 2025?
What we do is the way the process, the way they work is they estimate in today's dollars, then they apply the cost escalation factor to get it to bid time, which is a year from December, January 2027. And the numbers are set for it. If it goes later than that, if you can't pass the bond vote in November and it goes later than that, then we have to add more cost. So now they don't have a tariff. That's something we want to talk a little about, whether they're accounting for the tariffs in any way. So that's like another part of the conversation.
That could be 10 or 15%. 25 from materials or whatever.
Yeah.
That's another $20 million.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they built in some of these cost increases already, because some of them have already taken effect. Or whether, we just have to have that conversation.
That's why we're using local credit on the bottom, so it doesn't.
Other questions? Yes, the goal is, as I said, this week to tighten up the numbers sent to the facilities committee Monday, and then they'll bring a recommendation forward. And really, I think we asked what we're looking for is the thumbs up to keep moving, like to keep moving towards special effort on. The only decision I think will be things like, there's another decision point that has to do with the mechanical system or the HVAC system, which we have priced 3 or 4 different options from here to here. So there's price differences. So we want to involve facility committee in understanding what the benefits and costs are to each system.
And that's not the facilities committee, it's the executive committee for the
It's the
facilities
executive committee,
project.
right, so.
Yeah. It's not gonna be a warned meeting.
On that HVAC, does that play a role in the net zero that we've been talking about as well, as far as the choices that we made? Get us closer to where we wanted to be.
Yeah, there's 2 systems that are geothermal. They use water heat exchangers, and they're the difference is one. I don't want to get into there's one that's like more expensive to build, less expensive to maintain, more future proof than the other, but it's more expensive, and so we want to have that conversation and explain the pros and cons to both of them. So the board,
But if we're mission driven, that could play a role.
yeah, and they're both equally, I believe, equally as efficient in terms of, but what you're with net zero, what you're trying to do is trying to get an all electric system so that you can now, and if you want to drive reduce electricity down as much as possible so that you can offset that with solar. So whenever you introduce fossil fuels, then that becomes almost, very difficult to do because it just works. It's easier to calculate, easier to think about and achieve your system. And, but we will have many non-electric systems in the building. So, when we do a school building and a regular school building or any building and you want to do net zero, you're talking about all the loads, the plug loads, the user occupancy, everything, right? You're trying to get net zero. But this building has so many processes that are energy intensive. There's no way, and they're going to, be using different gases and different fossil fuels that we're really trying to focus on building shell and not all the processes. But in general, we're trying to get, because the less energy used, the less the costs to maintain and run the building, and better for the earth it is. And it's one of the guiding principles. So that's one group of people said was very important to that.
I'm sure that the cost estimators use some contingency percentage.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there's a way to adjust that so that it takes into consideration all the uncertainty.
Yes.
So it might have to be much higher contingency
Yeah.
that we're not used to, but it may.
Yeah. There's 3 contingencies built into the project budget. One is the cost escalation one I mentioned. So to get it from today's dollars to bid time. The other is it's basically a design and estimating contingency at these early stages, and they are putting 15% contingency. So they estimate everything out best to their ability, and then they add 15% because they're saying you haven't drawn everything, and we don't know what bid conditions will be like. So we're gonna and that's a very typical thing. What happens when you do a project like this is we work in phases. So we have design phases. The first phase is called schematic design, and then design development, construction documents. At the end of each phase, there's a new cost estimate. And as we develop more and more detail, the estimator reduces that design contingency. So at the very end, it's very low because we've drawn everything. They know everything about the project and they can be very accurate. But in the beginning, it's very big. The third contingency is the owner's project contingency. So after we total up everything in this project budget worksheet, and we come up with, let's say, 140 million. Then we add a 5% project contingency on top of that. So what that is, it's like a fund that's almost like a risk management or self-insurance fund that says, what happens if there's more ledge when we start to build? Or what happens when we discover an underground oil tank? Or what happens if we decided we do need to add a vehicle maintenance building? Or whatever. There's a pool of money for those kinds of unforeseen. Because once you pass the bond vote, I always like to use the analogy of a suitcase. You bought a suitcase of a certain size, and now you got to pack it as efficiently as possible to get as much stuff in there as you can, because you're not getting a bigger suitcase, And so that's why we want to make sure the project budgeting that suitcase is.
Sorry, yeah, this might be a Jody question, but if we have full day programming, do we need the sports fields? If we have a gym contingency discussion, but we actually need
The gym is more for PE, which we expect would be a Vermont state requirement for graduation.
Okay.
But right now, and even if we were a full day, the students are still members of their ascending school teams.
even in a full day configuration.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So any CTE that's currently full day with the academics on top of their programming, those students are athletes at their sending schools.
Okay.
They're not at. The only way that would be changed is if we became diploma granting, and then we would be the LEA, and therefore we could have sports fields. And what we had talked about in the facilities committee when this came up is that the Berrytown rec fields are not that far away. It might be best to engage with them on what we could do to rent those fields.
I have one more question. Rather than solar panels, did you ever consider solar tiles for your roof?
We did not. The roof, solar tiles, my understanding, is that those are for pitched roofs. And they are it's actually like a solar shingle.
Yes.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be appropriate because this building has flat roof. It's not really a flat roof, it's a low slope roof, but it's ostensibly a flat roof. So then you would just use regular air conditioning.
Which takes away from our rooftop hot tub and gardening up there.
So. All righty. Any further questions, comments, anything from the folks online for our experts while they're here? Thank you very much, then. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, we're-
So,
All right. You. Thank you.
See you Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll see you Wednesday.
Now, I'm just thinking, should we just run through the consent agenda and then we can move into our, hearing. We have consent agenda on the consent agenda to approve the minutes from 5/12/25. Has everyone read these minutes? Are there any additions?
second.
All right, second. All those in favor of approving the minutes of 5/12/25, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any dissent? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right. We will now move into our executive session for our
I think we're gonna do the program presentation first,
program presentation first, okay?
and then executive session,
Okay.
if that's okay.
All right, can do that. We're flexible.
I should go find the actual presentation.
All right, we will, We'll just adjust then and we'll do the program presentation for medical professions first, and then we will move into our executive session. So,
Yes, thank you, Bill.
welcome.
I always look forward to coming. Thanks, Brandon. Thank you. I might need to get a little closer so I can read the slides that I put together. So excuse me for a second. So for those of you who have not seen the presentation yet, last year I came with some things that were going really well for the program and some things that we needed to adjust. And the program quality committee supported some changes in the curriculum with some goals of really serving more students because we were capped at 12 due to our certified phlebotomy tech license and the live draws that were required. So happy to thank you. So I'm going to just do an update on college coursework and collaborations with the hospital, our field trips, equity work, our applicants, an update on how the embedded academics are going, which I'm really excited to share, what the graduates from Medco are doing, and then the program goals from here. So currently in the program, we're doing Introduction to Healthcare and Human Biology through CVCC, which is 6 college credits. And then students have the option of adding a 3rd college course, medical terminology, so a total of 9 credits. And that's been going very well. However, both the hospital and the study schools really want us to add anatomy and technology 1 and 2 because it's needed for all the health science programs, essentially. It also saves money, I think, from the hospital pathway if they do it here. So that's part of what they've asked us to do. So this year we had 12 students earning a total of 84 credits, which was pretty exciting. Our collaborations with the hospital, so the phlebotomy program was originally developed in response to an ask from the hospital. And so we added it, and the intention was they would do 10 live draws each in our lab and then go to the hospital to finish them. But the hospital is very understaffed. And so that only happened 1 year. And then we were doing all the draws, over 300 ourselves in the lab. And so we've been doing that for the past 2 years. And it was limiting how many students we could take. And so we're kind of changing that, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this year we did 5 draw clinics, 3 at the hospital and 2 in the evenings here. So 1 before National Technical Honors Study and 1 before trade fair, which was very helpful for students getting their draws. We were very blessed to have all of our draw clinics supported by graduates who work in the hospital, so that was really cool to see them there. We did over 100 draws at the hospital on staff, and we did over 300 draws in the program. So you can see why this is a limiting factor for how many students we can take, because I need to stand one-on-one with the student when there's a draw, which is very nice. We will not be doing that many draws next year, which is why we can take more students, which is exciting. So 8 out of 12 of our students participated in job shadowing this year, and that's up significantly from last year, which is great. And there's a goal of next year of 100%. And so I'm hoping we can reach that for next year. We did the same field trips we did last year with 1 additional draw clinic. So we did the host the fall and spring conference. So that's the career technical organizations that are required by the state. We did a high horses equine therapy, which is the highlight of our year. Students love it. I love it. High horses love it. It's so much fun. And then we did 1 additional draw clinic, so 3 draw clinics. That's a little bit hard. I think I can do it, but we added a social determinants of health research project this year. And Jody, if you click on that STUH posters, we can pull up just some of the student samples. We just kind of open there, scroll through the slides. So this was based on the Center for Disease Control's equity priorities. Their social determinants of health. And so the students had to pick a social determinant of health and pick a topic and create a research poster
that had to have certain criteria in it. And a lot of the students chose to highlight these posters at trade fair and also in their e-portfolios. We are very proud of them. We printed them on really big paper, and we're doing a celebration actually on Friday where they look at all the posters. And so
That's amazing. They did these posters?
they did the posters. It was, they had to have a data representation visually.
Yeah.
They had to describe the problem and how it interacted with the CDC's SDOHs. They had to have a personal story, so they had to look at qualitative versus quantitative data, which was great. So I was very pleased with how they turned out. That was the first time we did this, so it went really well. I have to go back to the slide. Thank you. Yeah, so we continued with the income inequality lessons, the gender diversity in healthcare, the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks, and for the first year, we graded on national justice standards. So Jody helped us put them into Canvas, and the students were graded on some of those equity standards, which was really great. And I think the state is moving in that direction anyway, so we were kind of doing it at the same time, which was great. Thank you. So in terms of our invasive procedure, so before we started doing phlebotomy, we had to do an exposure management plan, work with VisVid to get a waiver, and all of that prepared. So from 22 to 24, we had 2 needle stick injuries. They were only sterile needles, which is what we want. If you're gonna stab yourself, we want it on a trainer, not on a person. So that was good. And we had 2 episodes of vasovagal or syncope fainting. And those 2 episodes were actually last year, and they were students that were not in health science. So that's why this year we changed who we were drawing. So instead of drawing any student in the school, we moved to just health science and just family members and hospital staff. And so we only had 1 episode of syncope this year, and it was an EMS student. Sometimes it happens. And 0 needle sticks, which is what we want. We want 0. So that was good. So last time I spoke with you all, a year ago, we were going to pilot some curriculum programs for integrated academics. And they didn't go very well, I would say. So we tried Lexia. It was designed for high school students, but it was very juvenile in just the way it was presented, and the students really didn't like it. And so we didn't have a lot of success with that. And then we were going to pilot, how do you pronounce this?
It was Alex. It's spelled.
Alex. It's spelled really strange, and I have a hard time with it. So Alex, we're going to pilot that. And because we were such a tiny little account, they weren't getting back to us. And so we stopped it right before the beginning of the school year and got our money back because we kept emailing and calling them and weren't responding. And we thought this is not the road we want to go down with this company. They're not communicating with us. So we didn't do either of those. We did have success with Visible Body, which is the anatomy and physiology software that both Vermont State University and CVCC use for dissection. And that was really successful, and we're going to use it next year for anatomy and physiology. So that went really well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what are you doing then, since you didn't use the Lexia? How are you addressing the notion of, critical reading analysis, which was your attention?
It's a great question. I'll talk about it on the next slide.
Okay.
I'll hold that thought for 1 second.
Yeah.
No, not at all. And then we were going to do medical terminology stations with flashcards. And what we realized this year is that we really just need to teach a medical terminology curriculum because it really helps the students with licensing exams. And so we're getting a book next year, and we're going to take them through system-based medical terminology. So that's how that went. Thank you. So what we did do, which I was very happy with, was have embedded academic teachers. And the collaborative projects we did with that teacher was a glucose monitoring lab project where students created a hypothesis, made a prediction, tracked data, and then graphed it, which was really exciting. They loved it. Some of them got wayside, that was our hypothesis. If I eat wayside and I go for a walk, this is what's gonna happen with my blood sugar. That was fine. They had to have a really comprehensive understanding of all the variables that affect blood glucose levels, so it was kind of neat to see them apply that. We did medication administration, range of motion, dosage calculations and proportions. And then our goal for next year is to incorporate a math component to as many units as we can in collaboration with the teacher. So it went very well. We did see some increases in our work key scores, which I thought was very exciting. And it went, it was more successful than a curriculum that you just have students like work. And then for critical writing, reading, and analysis, we worked with the integrative academic teacher to do lots of Collins writing, a writing for health careers assignment, resume building, cover letter building, the STOH posters. So our integrative academic teacher was involved in that. The Henrietta Lacks paper, a poetry assignment, and haikus. So that's kind of what we did.
I'd like to read some of those medical haikus. I bet they're fun.
Okay, some of the pictures are on Instagram. That's more. They did a great job. Yeah. And then we're going to add either a medical terminology workbook or a textbook next year. And I had to get a quote trying to decide which one to do. So we'll have more medical terminology next year also. So these are, I added another line. This is the same slide as last year, but just with the 25-26 data. So you can see in 2019-2020, we had 18 applicants and 5 enrolled, and it's kind of gone up since then. This round, we have 48 combined first choice, second choice applicants, and we have 16 enrolled. So I'm pleased to see that we've gotten to 16, and we can take that, which is great.
What do you attribute the increase to?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Must have been 12 applicants.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly. I came in 2020, and we started a newsletter that went out to all the sending schools and all the parents. And that, I think, was very helpful to let people know what the program was. Here's what we're doing here, get them excited about it. So I think that was some of it. I think the tier 2 credentials, the CCMA and the CPT, we didn't have any tier 2. And in partnership with the Essex Tech teacher, we requested that we add these ones in. So I think that helped because students come away with something tangible that's not just college credits. And then I think the anatomy and physiology shift has boosted enrollment as well. The students really want those classes. They want those classes. So I think that's part of it. However, when you see the 48, it's first choice and second choice. So those students are counted somewhere else also. So you just have to keep that in mind. And it doesn't remove the students who are not eligible for the program. So this year I had 2 to 3 ninth grade applicants, which I can't take because of the rules for the licensing test. I only can take juniors and seniors. So I feel like the story behind that, you just have to be careful because not all of those students, we couldn't take the 48 and plot them in 3 programs. But it's still growing, so we're happy. Yeah.
Do you believe that the need for healthcare professionals in the area is also inspiring people to attend this program?
I do. There is a high demand, don't have enough people.
Right.
They're chronically understaffed everywhere. We build partnerships with Clear Choice MD and the hospital, and to the point where the director of the lab comes to our jaw clinic and is like, who are your seniors? And I have their resume. So I think as we're working in the field, people are learning more about our students and what they're capable of. And right now we have 4 or 5 students at the hospital working. We're very happy. So I think that helps. And as we get to know sending school counselors and we build relationships there, that is also helpful build the program. That's a really good question. So a lot of our students go on to early college. The majority of them, I would say, at CCB, Norwich, VSU. And then many of them go right into the field. So usually Clear Choice Central Vermont Medical Center, private practices. We have someone at the Gary residence right now. And then some of them go to EMS1 or other programs at the tech center. We do have a co-op student for next year. Co-op is tricky for MedPro because most healthcare organizations require you to be 18 and have a high school diploma for liability. So that limits us in what we can do with co-op. Luckily, our co-op student for next year turns 18 in November. So we're hoping that she can work in a non-clinical role and then shift to a clinical role once she turns 18. And our current co-op coordinator has been building relationships with Gifford, and Gifford has slightly different rules. We're hoping that's an option as well.
And it may be an option because Randolph paused their medical program for next year, so that can support that.
So those are our rates for the students who are either in the healthcare field after graduation or in college. So we had 3 out of 5, 5 out of 7, 9 out of 10, and 9 out of 11. So the majority of our students are going into the field or going out to college, which is good, especially when we do our CLNA. So this is a little hard to read. I'm just going to get closer so I can show you. But the most important pieces are down in the bottom here. So for 24, 25, 100% of students earned 3 or more college credits. 92% of them earned 6 or more college credits. And 66% earned at least 1 Tier 2 credential. I forgot to add that in. We just got that data on like Thursday of last week. The pass rates for CCMA and CPT were both 66%, which is the highest we've ever had in the history of the program, which is great. So if you think of the AOE program quality standards, their goal for us is more than 50% earning 6 college credits or 3 college credits in a Tier 2, and we had 91.6, which is great. So we're way above what the AOE is asking us to do, which is another reason why we can drop the 1 credential, take more students, and do A&P 1 and 2. We're the only program in the state trying to do all of the things at once. So we're going to let go of that. Okay, so next year we're going to have A&P 1 and 2, and we're going to focus just on the CCMA. And my hope is that we can bring up the pass rates by only doing 1 licensing test instead of 2. So that will be exciting. And that's all for us. Yeah. So hopefully more STEM STEAM integration for next year, working on A&P 1 and 2. So the advisory board for the program did a student panel at our last meeting. And some of the students who were at Norwich and CVCC said that they didn't feel fully prepared for college, which surprised me because we do a lot of that in the program. And so that got me thinking that I maybe need to do some more work on that. And CCV does have an Introduction to College Studies course. And so we're in the process of thinking through how can we better prepare them. They are going early. They're not yet 18. And even if they're prepared academically, they might not be prepared socially, emotionally, psychologically. And so also how to advocate for themselves because no one's following you around in college, like making sure you're okay. And so I think we need to think through a little bit more, how do we follow and support students a little bit more or connect them up with the right resources when they go on. They all did quite well academically and were also very stressed out and said they didn't feel ready, some of them. So that's a goal. And then getting 100% of students participating in job shadowing. And then we didn't compete in a HOSA competition this year because the timing of it is really tricky with the live draws and all the other things we're doing. So a goal for next year is to have students really participate in getting the full experience with those career technical organizations. So that I was a judge for career display. So I thought, oh, this will help me get an idea of what they're supposed to be doing. And so next year we're going to do that one because now I know exactly what they need. So hopefully we do. Yeah, so that's our goals for next year.
I didn't know there was a spy among them.
Oh, what?
Spy.
Like five. It's not, no. Yeah. So that'll be exciting. Any questions? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm new to the board and I don't know much about programming here, but do you do all the teaching? Are you the sole
I
faculty
do all
member?
the teaching.
How do you do it? And how
I
does
don't really know.
friends
Um,
here?
otherwise,
It just seems insurmountable.
It's a lot, and I'm looking forward to dropping one of the credentials.
Okay, but now we're adding physiology.
Now we're adding one.
4 credit courses, and those are always a
Yeah.
trouble even for students.
You know, I think I have been very lucky to be able to build the program with lower amounts of students, right? So if you go back to the thing, you can see it was like
Yeah.
5, 8, 10, 12. And so I think if you had plopped me in with 16 students and I had to build the program at the same time, it would not have been the success.
Well, it's
It's my
pretty incredible.
mistakes. Yeah.
So do the students also go to the colleges to take some of these classes, or they're doing all the teaching?
Well, I don't teach medical terminology. That's taken as a fast forward class. But I'll do the AAP one too. And so we do most of it. Some of it is additional. So only, I think, 5 took the med. So it's an additional college course. And I'm a little, it'll be new with AMP because they have to register and enroll right in September. Whereas right now, I have the whole fall semester to determine, do I think they'll be successful or not? We're not gonna have that, and the reason we didn't have AMP last year is we wanted to be very transparent with our applicants and our families and our sending schools about that. And so we waited a whole year to make sure everybody knew. You're in AMP and it's starting in September. So we were.
I remember having a conversation, and how did that go? How do you feel that went when you looked at the candidates and talked to some of them? Did they
Yeah.
understand?
A lot of them were excited about it, and it was in the program of studies, and Abby did a lot of work, our school counselor, on making sure setting schools and families were aware that they would be in lab science, college level lab science right away. And when we looked through applicants, we really wanted to make sure they had the academic prerequisites. Have they taken biology? How are their grades? Because we don't want to, they just might not be ready yet. Doesn't mean they can't do it in the future, but at that time, they might not be ready. We don't want to, non-passing grade on a college transcript is worse than not taking it in the health science world. So we want to be mindful that we're giving students the support they need to be successful. Good question.
Have any students entered higher education in their second semester then because they amassed so many credits?
That is a really good question. Not so much in Med Pro because usually they only have 9. 9 is the max.
Right.
Yeah. So next year the max would be 11.
And they need 13.
They would need, well, they need probably 30 or 25 to 32 to be a second year, but yeah, good question. Other questions or concerns?
I'm just curious though, there's a, you get like a CPR certification, or first responder or something along the way. So you said it's, I think something go into EMS1. There's like other things that are like less time consuming that are really relevant.
Yeah, so they are required, 100% of them are required to get those safety credentials. So they all do CPR for healthcare providers, which is BLS, through the American Heart Association, and they do first aid and blood pathogen. So they all get that regardless, and it's like the first thing to do after it. And then they get the A and 1 and 2, and then they get hopefully the CPR.
Nice.
And I used a different curriculum this year than I did the year before, and it seemed to reflect in the pass rate, so I'm going to keep using that. Really good question. Other questions?
This was wonderful.
Thank you for caring. We appreciate you.
Thank you for what you do. You're amazing.
We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for telling us about what you do, and we continue to be excited about that because it really is an addition to the region to have that. Knowing how many traveling healthcare providers there are in this area, the more that we can provide from the local community is really very important to the whole area.
I mean, for me, it's so wonderful when the students, the current students, can see the graduates doing what they're doing and how excited they are. That's really much. That's, I think, maybe the most rewarding part for me is going to the hospital with my current students and then seeing all the people that are there.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate the time.
She has to stay, she can't.
I
I know.
haven't go yet. but-
Right. I appreciate your time telling us about the program. All right, so that having been done, are we now ready to move into our executive session?
Is it 6:50? 7:50, 7:53.
So I need a motion to move into executive session.
I'll move,
Hold it, let me get it on the record here.
just because I wrote 7:50
Yes.
today.
To move into executive session with all board members, the Superintendent Emerson, for the purpose of a grievance hearing of which public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage, and that is 1 VSA Section 313.